Inner Mongolia is China's Montana. It has cold winters, really hot summers, and big empty spaces where conditions are quite tough, which makes it a very strange place to build a giant 200-foot-tall red Victorian palace. In this far-off place near the Gobi Desert, all they've got is a highway that goes nowhere, an airstrip that doesn't work, and a fake city that looks like Indiana Jones. This place was never meant to be lived in. It was built as target practice on China's largest military base, and the People's Liberation Army clearly had a very specific mission in mind. This is that 200-foot-tall palace in the desert, and this is a replica of Taiwan's presidential office building in downtown Taipei. This situation is really disturbing. The Chinese military actively practicing an invasion of its small democratic neighbour should attract the world's attention and outrage. But it looks like they're not about to attack now. They built the practice place 9 years ago. However, the media reports that this can turn out to be more than just practicing. Just a while back, US Air Force General Mike Minahan sent a note to his 50,000 team members. He basically said, "I hope I am wrong. My gut tells me we will fight in 2025. Also, another military person, Admiral Mike Gilday, made news last year for saying a Chinese attack in 2022 or 2023 wasn't impossible. When experts make predictions or scary headlines show up, it makes us feel like a war is bound to happen really soon. Stay tuned till the end of the video, as today we uncover when will China invade Taiwan, why it's doing it, and what are the consequences of this action. China has changed a lot since 1949. It's a whole new country now. But for 74 years of all this change, there is one thing they're super clear about. Every leader from Mao onwards has said, we need to stay united. Even though they never ruled Taiwan, China's party sees itself as the real keeper of Chinese history, culture, and Han identity. Now, the US being around and Taiwan's growing national identity adds to the problem. China has totally modernized its military in the last 20 years, but the size of their ships and their budget doesn't give the exact picture of the situation. Plus, how do we really know how good an army is when it hasn't fought a big war in nearly 50 years? Even if experts don't agree on who's stronger, China or the US, it's clear they're getting closer in power. What used to be a sure win for the US is now uncertain. And China hasn't invaded anywhere yet, even though they can and they want to. The question is, why not? One idea is they're waiting until they're sure they can win tactically. When China's leader Xi Jinping says Taiwan must and will be reunited with China, it could mean they want to attack. When he repeatedly mentions the year 2049 as the target for China's rejuvenation, it's not weird to interpret this as a hard deadline for unification. But there's more than talk. In 2016, it suspended all communication, and in 2019, their fighter jets came really close, like face to face. Then, next year, they stopped buying Taiwanese pineapples. The tensions seem to be growing a lot between these two. China has gotten more aggressive lately. But let's rewind the clock back to 2000. Back then, Taiwan was led by the Green Democratic Progressive Party, which was skeptical of engagement with China. The DPP at that time inched closer to declaring independence than it ever had. Actually, so close that China got upset and George Bush had to calm things down. Following this incident, Beijing enacted an anti-secession law in 2005, which made explicit its long-standing threat to invade if Taiwan declared independence. Then, in 2008, things shifted. Taiwan's DPP lost, and the Kuomintang, KMT, won. The KMT was all about being buddies with China and not being on their own. For around 8 years, they had the friendliest relationship ever with China. The presidents even met up, shook hands, and signed a deal for economic cooperation. But in 2016, things changed. The DPP came back in charge. They didn't push for being separate anymore, but they've gotten cozier with the United States. So, what did China do? They stopped talking, stopped trading with Taiwan, and started military drills. Now, we can't be sure if China would have acted the same with the KMT party in power, but this timeline does show a link between Taiwan's government and how China acts. So it's not Taiwan's fault, it's China's reactions that cause all this. Think of China's stance as a range. On one end is what they really want, to bring Taiwan into the fold. On the other end are the things they won't accept. Most people think that if Taiwan declared independence, China would invade right away. But when the KMT is in power, China chills out, hoping they will have better relations with Taiwan. But when the DPP takes charge, China acts in a different way. Xi's speeches start sounding like threats when you see it this way. He might seem confused when he says, "We'll work for peace, but force is still an option." But maybe these two promises aren't actually the opposite. China might honestly mean both. On one hand, saying no force seems like a big deal for them. It's what stops Taiwan from saying we're independent, and it could close the door on ever being together. At the same time, going into a real war would be crazy expensive. Taiwan makes about 92% of the world's best computer chips. Almost a fifth of China's people live really close to Taiwan. And 90% of the world's biggest ships pass through the Taiwan Strait. Even if they tried the longer way, through Indonesia, shipping would cost $500 million more each month. People say a year-long war would make America's GDP go down by 5 to 10%, and China's by 25 to 35%, according to a study in 2016. But let's be real, these are just guesses. Nobody can totally figure out what would happen in a war between big countries with nukes. You see, Xi Jinping's goal for China in 2049 is to be super successful, which doesn't fit with attacking Taiwan. So yeah, China wants things to remain peaceful. But acting like they're ready to fight gets them some benefits. It looks good at home, makes the military happy, and builds Xi's image. Also, 2049 could be a genuine deadline, as it is the 100th anniversary of the PRC. In simple words, we can't be sure if China is stopping Taiwan from being independent or actually planning an attack. Having a big, strong army is helpful either way. If we look at everything together, the only thing we know for sure is we don't know when or if China will attack. Actually, it would be a big shock if Admiral Mike Gilday said for sure there won't be a Chinese attack in 2023, or if General Mike Minahan wasn't anticipating the worst possible outcome. If you read the whole memo from General Minahan, you'll see it's not meant for regular people, it uses Air Force words. When everything's said and done, these are just guesses. The wide range of predictions shows that. But even so, they sound important. As one political reporter said, "I don't know if or when China will attack Taiwan, but when someone like 4-star Air Force General Mike Minahan writes, we should really pay attention." The US needs to get ready for a possible invasion. The results of a potential fight would be so terrible that we can't ignore the threat. Look at Putin's actions in Ukraine. It shows we can't always trust logic and reason. The US should invest in Taiwan's economy instead of pushing away, which could make it depend more on China. US-China tensions probably won't get a lot better anytime soon, so managing that relationship carefully matters more than ever. But you know what's interesting? Because we're not sure if China will really invade Taiwan, that's exactly why we should take it seriously. What we do might affect what happens. Experts like Ryan Hass, Bonnie Glaser and Richard Bush say that even though a real war is just a guess, China is already playing a mind game. It might not be one Chinese missile or jet that scares Taiwan, but over time, China wants to make Taiwan feel unsure and unsafe. In 2017, a survey showed only 41% of Taiwanese people thought China would attack if Taiwan declared independence. 3 years later, that went up to 61%. Back in the early 2000s, a Chinese general said hundreds of US cities could get nuked if America helped Taiwan in a war. People got really worried about how many nukes China had. But this theory is likely wrong. Making things seem worse than they are doesn't help Taiwan. Only time will tell how things unfold. So, that's it for today. And now we invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Do subscribe to the channel if you like our content. We will catch you in the next one. Bye.